and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated. I got held up at work. Go around that way. Is he right
Yeah,
here?
he's coming around though. No, he's
He's
here.
over there.
Yeah.
Switch the. Sorry, at this time, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board? For a second time, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board? For a third and final time, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board? Seeing none, public portion is closed at 6:01. Student representative reports.
Good evening, my name is Khadija and here are some updates from West Haven High School. Firstly, thank you to Entenmann's for generously donating a variety of deliciously baked goods to Haven's Harvest, who then distributed them to West Haven High. October 9th was our 25th annual college fair and it was a success. West Haven High's football team had a great homecoming game, winning 39-0 against Guilford. Congratulations to Sarah Davy and Brandon Siafong for being named SEC Breakthrough Scholars for this fall season. And also congratulations to the Blue Devils of the Month, Bradley and Samir.
Thanks. Anything else? Yes. Anybody have questions for the student reps? I'm sorry, I was a little remiss. I meant to start the meeting with a moment of silence. A dear Westie and assistant hockey coach passed away suddenly over the weekend. So if we could have a moment of silence in memory of Lana. Thank you. I'm sure I can speak for the board in offering the Violano and the Morale family our deepest sympathies on the loss of their family member. It's not only their loss, but a great loss to the West Haven community. Sorry. Administration status of schools.
Thank you, Kevin. Tonight, the focus will be on the academics, so I'll turn it over to Judy. Before I do, though, I just want to thank all of the administrators who are here, in addition to the ones who will be part of the presentation, and know that even more of them would have come, except tonight is parents visiting night at our elementary school. So thank you. But if again, prior to me turning it over to Judy, if anyone has any questions on anything, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
Looks like we're good.
Turn it over to Judy.
You got it in the email?
You were coming this way, just wanted this,
Let me go on that side so I can see the slides.
Yes,
I didn't. print them.
Speak to Chris again today and Jeff about TVs on the sign, so hopefully it's coming.
if you wanted to say yours right here on the screen.
Slides from this way.
Okay, so good evening. I have my team here tonight, and we're going to talk to you about how we performed on our standardized tests this past year. We're covering math, language arts, lost links, and science. And on our district report card, this would be indicator 1. We will be talking about all 12 indicators in January when we get our report. We haven't got it yet. Usually it's by the end of October, beginning of November. When we go over scores tonight, we've broken it down in those areas, and each one of my coordinators will share what we're doing. But we also looking at the strategies tonight that are really important. This starts like in August. You know, when we get the scores, we have conversations about how the kids did. We look at what we need to do to improve. Our administrators in the building work very hard with the data teams. They even drill it all the ways down to individual children. We look at our tier 1 instruction and our resources and how we're using our support staff. And that's all going to be part of our strategies tonight. We will have an opportunity at the end for questions. So this is the English Language Arts District Performance Index. It's the state is in the red, West Haven is in the blue. As you can see, we're trending with the state, keeping in line with them. And we will drill down as far as grade levels and how we did and when we introduce the language arts piece. Math. Okay, this is a general overview again. This is how the district performed in math. Again, West Haven is in blue, the state is in the red, and you can see that we are trending along with the state. Slight dip, but we're working really hard to keep our scores up. Okay, so. Oh, science. Oh, language arts. Sorry.
So as Judy spoke about, what she was showing you was the district performance index. This is a piece of that index, which is our smarter balance data. So as you can see, we're trending right in line with the state, which unfortunately has been a bit stagnant since COVID. And we have been a bit stagnant since COVID as well. What we're going to talk about tonight is the small gains that we have made and what we're going to do to increase those gains in the future in the area of ELA.
If I can, I think it's important to remember, that we are in line with the state, but considering our demographics and our socioeconomics, I believe there's DERGs, which are the district reference groups A to I, we're in H. So please keep that in mind so that we're even close is very good.
And we'll be talking about, as Neil mentioned, the
Yeah.
DERG data as well. So there's a few different ways we're going to look at data tonight. What Judy talked about was trend data. What I'm going to talk about right now is cohort data, and then we're also going to talk about the DERG data that Neil alluded to. So right here, what we're looking at is cohort data. And when we say cohort data, this means that the students in grade 4, what's in blue was how they performed in grade 3. What's in red is how they performed in grade 4. So for each grade band, this is the same group of students from one year to the next. Now, this is not a perfectly matched cohort because we are a transient district, but this is what we call rough cohort data. So as you can see, from grades 3 to 4, we've made a pretty significant gain in our SBA scores. And what we've attributed that to is our work in phonemic awareness, our work with third graders and getting them to read for pleasure, and our targeted SRBI instruction. So our reading specialists, our special ed teachers, our EL teachers are really doing a great job at that elementary level, targeting instruction to those students. And we're showing the fruit of that in these gains between grades 3 and 4. In grade 5, we're seeing a little bit of a dip. And we looked at a lot of factors that could attribute to that dip. And when we talk about strategies toward the end of this piece of the presentation, I'll let you know how we're going to address that. Grade 6, we've held pretty steady. Grade 7, a marginal gain. And grade 8, we see again, a pretty big advancement. And in looking at that data, we can attribute that advancement to a shift in the way we are looking at our social studies instruction and our social studies curriculum. So we've gone from a skills-based curriculum to a standards-based curriculum. So gone are the days of memorizing the dates of wars and the presidents and things like that. And instead, the social studies teachers are working on a set of standardized skills and writing. And those gains are showing in our grade 7 and 8. Here, this is what Neil is alluding to, is our DERG comparison. So we are second in our DERG, and we are behind only Meriden. We have outdone everyone else in our DERG. I did reach out to my counterpart at Meriden to find out what they're doing, just out of curiosity to see maybe there's some strategies we can steal. And the good news is a lot of what they have done over the last couple of years, their work with a structured literacy, phonemic awareness, and fluency is mirrored in the Benchmark Advanced program that we adapted. So I'm hoping over the next couple of years with the implementation of Benchmark Advance, we'll start to see these gains that Meriden has seen. But really, in as Neil said, in being in DERG H, trending with the state, being second in our DERG, even though our gains are small, these are really comparatively very good gains.
You know, what you just said about Meriden, I thought maybe because the education secretary was just from them.
I'm
But they
convinced
were
of giving them
powerful.
secret grants, but that's. So one of the things I want to talk about is our strategies. How are we going to move forward? My Board of Ed student reps, if you could just hand out a couple of those things. So as you know, we have adopted Benchmark Advance, and this is really going to be where the bulk of our resources are put in K-6 this year. So the idea behind Benchmark Advance is it is based on the science of reading. And the science of reading, the premier point of that is that it's important that all students have access to the same quality tier 1 instruction. So when you're going into different classrooms in the elementary schools, what you will see now is that no matter what classroom you're going into, if it's at the same grade level as a classroom across the hall or across town, you're going to be seeing the same instruction. And I think that's really important that all of our kids are getting that same high quality tier 1 instruction. The other thing they're getting is very targeted intervention, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The benchmark curriculum is separated into knowledge strands. And this allows us really to build a community of learners because each knowledge strand is the same grades K through 6. But what you see is a build on that knowledge strand. So an essential question in kindergarten might be something like, why do we have rules? Whereas in 6th grade, it'll be something like, how do new governments form? So it's the same type of essential question, but they build on those knowledge strands. And this allows us to form a community of learners. So what you have in front of you that the Board of Ed reps just gave you is some of the tools that we're using to build our community of learners in grades K through 6. So colorful posters and bookmarks that are specific to their school because that gets them excited that these posters and bookmarks say their school name on it. And they have those essential questions. Those are the wonder questions that we look at for each unit. So the graphic design department at the high school has been nice enough to make a lot of different graphics and a lot of different characters for us. And the kids do get excited when you come with the new bookmarks. So that allows us to build that community of learners. We are also pushing that reading for interest, not level, which is another piece of that science of reading. So prior, if a student wanted to read a book, it might not be on their level. They might be discouraged from reading it. But now what the science of reading says is allow students to read for interest, not because at their level. And that's going to allow them to bridge forward. The targeted interventions based on data. So it doesn't do you any good to know that a student struggles with reading if you don't know the reason for that struggle, if you don't know if it's comprehension, fluency, phonemic awareness. If you don't know exactly the shortcoming, you are not going to be able to truly assist that student. So some of the assessments in Benchmark that we do at the beginning of the year, midpoint and endpoint, allow us to target those interventions during our SRBI time. And this is an SRBI for all model. So our students who are struggling readers get SRBI, our students who are advanced readers get SRBI. So everyone gets strategy.
Explain SRBI. Just so-
Sorry. So scientific research-based interventions. So they're targeted interventions based on the needs of that student. But when you hear SRBI, you think only of the lower level students. This is SRBI for all. So even our highest readers, they get targeted interventions that allow them to grow even more. There are 3 different intervention things that we're using. One of them is we call PI, phonics intervention, STA, which is the steps to advanced. That's the model that we're using to scaffold instruction for our struggling learners and our special education students, and Express, which is being used with our EL population. Raph will talk to you more about that. For grades 7 and 8, as I mentioned, we're focusing on a skills-based curriculum rather than just memorizing facts. Skills such as reading. We're also using something called Brisk AI, which I would love to show you at another meeting because it's just so to sound silly cool. So this is something that the district invested in this summer. Shane Sosowski and I did a lot of research on the different AI tools out there and how we could use them to our advantage instead of our disadvantage. And we came across Brisk AI. So we did some training this summer and have brought this on 7-12, but this is focused on 7 and 8 because that's the years we do SBA. We don't do it in 9-12. With the Brisk AI tool, we are able to put any assignment into this Brisk tool, enter the shortcomings on our SBA standards. So whatever skill that student might be weak in, and it will personalize an assignment or an assessment based on that shortfall in SBA. So it's really an amazing tool. We're also doing targeted writing instruction and the revision of elective courses based on our SBA data. So I'm working with the elective teachers at Bailey to revise the courses so they can provide targeted instruction. And we're also doing a revision of the intervention courses for the same purpose. So those are the things that we're using to build on our SBA scores going forward. Any ELA specific questions before I pass the torch?
Just, Dana and I, actually, I met with their representative from Benchmark and I've talked to Dana, and they're going to come to us in the spring to kind of assess where we are at the time and give you guys a report as to, again, where we are and where we'll be going. And I think that'll be very helpful because it's a little bit too early to make an assessment on it now. But, we are hoping to see some progress in where we're going. So I think that'll be very, again, not only helpful to us, but helpful to you guys as well.
Okay, so we're going to move on to math. I'll talk about some strategies and supports that have been put in place also this year after we look at the data. What you see here is proficiency trend data over the course of the last 3 years on how we did in West Haven. As you can see, the grades 3 and 4 have progressively moved and improved. If we look at grades 5 and 6, we had a substantial jump in 22-23, and we took a dip in grade 5, and we'll talk about some of the strategies and supports that have been put in place for grade 5 this year. And we've stayed pretty stable in grade 6. Grade 7 had a nice jump in data when it came to proficiency last year, and I really truly believe it has something to do with some of the dedication that they had in building thinking classrooms. And grade 8 has been pretty stable over the years, but I'm hoping that this year we can get a nice jump on some of the new strategies that we put in place. When we look at math growth, this is a comparison with the state averages. Again, as Neil alluded to, that, you know, it's very impressive when we can beat those state averages, and grade 4 and 6 historically does very well when it comes to the averages in math growth. Grade 5 didn't do as well last year, but that was to be expected when we saw the proficiency scores go down. Grade 7 and 8 usually trends very well with the state. But overall, when we look at our DIRG, when we look at our economic peers, we still sit on the top half of our DIRG. I think we're in 3rd or 4th place. And I do think that some of it contributed to our lower scores in 5th grade. I think that we can do much better as of next year, or this year coming up. One of the strategies that I would really like to talk about tonight is our new coaching series. It focuses on Tier 1 instruction during core time. Under the direction of a certified coach, our K-8 math team is learning how to conduct an effective learning walk, where we look for trends in the classroom, and then we take those trends, we take best practices and put it into a co-teaching model.
Robert, can I put you on the spot? I had Dana define SRBI. Just make sure the board members, especially the new ones, understand Tier 1, what Tier 1
Okay.
instruction is.
Tier 1 instruction is when all students are together. So we have Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 type students that we would like to call them. It's almost like when you have to level students in a classroom. And Tier 1 is when everyone's involved, no matter what level you're at. And this is the type of instruction where everybody's going to get it at the same time. And sometimes there's different things and supports that you have to put in place. And this is one of those things that this coaching series is hopefully promising to, while during Tier 1 instruction, we have a co-planning model where we go in and co-plan with the teacher and then execute that plan and go into co-teach. And not only try to reach all students in the classroom, but also try to support really good teaching. We were able to target 9 teachers this year in the district. So with the shortcomings in the 5th grade, and also with the large amount of percentages of new teachers that are in Carrigan, we chose to pick the 5th grade and a couple from the 6th grade. And overwhelmingly, the teachers open-armed and volunteered, and they were very thankful for the support, as well as the math team being very thankful for being a part of something that's going to help them learn. To continue with interventions, the 5th and 6th grade students will be able to still use MyPath instruction from iReady. We talked about that. That's a Tier 3 type of instruction, which is one-to-one with the student. And we were able to extend those licenses into some of them into the 3rd and 4th grade students this year. And the teachers are very happy to be able to support that, support the students with that instruction. We were also able to reallocate a math facilitator from Seth Haley Elementary School and be able to pull the facilitator over at Carrigan to give extra support to Carrigan, which is now going to allow us to hopefully get into each and every math class 5 or 6 times out of a 10-day cycle, which is a really exciting to hope that that's going to be positive at the end of the year. Other great things that are happening, manipulatives. We have K-4 teachers really trying to put those manipulatives in the classroom as much as possible, so that students can really get a good understanding, a good conceptual understanding of what they're doing. The idea is to be able to try to bridge the gap between conceptual, something that you put in your hand, a manipulative, and a procedure. When these kids come from the 4th grade and get into the 5th grade, please know that this is the first time that these 5th grade students are asked to think abstractly. It's like kindergarten in secondary ed. So 75% of the concepts are brand new to them. They don't know how to think abstractly. So in order to be able to do that, manipulatives really support that concept to get that conceptual understanding and bridge the gap to something procedural and how they have to think. We've also promoted it in the 7th and 8th grade. The 7th and 8th grade teachers and a couple of the 9th grade teachers are using algebra tiles, and they really starting to see some of the connections with students. Because when they get to that level, they should know it, and we still have our struggling learners. Building thinking classrooms was really strong last year in the 7th grade. I really do think it had a lot to contribute with the scores, those proficiency scores that they got last year, and we've expanded that concept into the 8th grade and a couple of 9th grade classrooms. And then I want to be able to just celebrate our professional development on election day that we're going to have for artificial intelligence, AI, to help the teachers really be on top of the teaching and to support them in the learning as well.
Science is next. Your packet a little bit.
Part one.
The science, the district performance index in your packet is on the 3rd slide. And we again, like ELA and math, we are trending with the state. We are 59.6 last year, 61.6 was the state, 57 for this year, and 61 was the state. So very close to state level. When we're looking at our DIRG, oops. We are number 1 in our DIRG, and we are number 1 tied with Meriden and Stanford. So we are, everybody said, we're on top of our DIRG. So we're following the trend with based on our demographics. When we're looking at the science assessment, as you well know, science gets assessed in grades 5, 8, and 11. Students in grade 5 get tested on skills and content they've learned in grades 3 and 4. And 5, grade 8 is 6, 7, 8, and grade 11 is 9, 10, 11. So these scores came back to us early back in June. So we worked all summer on looking at strengths and weaknesses. We have revised curriculum. We have aligned assessments. And we also decided to create, we used to use NWA up to last year. We don't have a ready math or benchmark. So we decided to create in-district benchmark assessments. Those benchmark assessments are going to target those engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts that our students are weak in. So those assessments were given out the 2nd week of school. Teams and data teams have worked together to identify all the weak areas. And now we're going to spend election day designing lessons and performance tests to strengthen those areas. Also, we started again at the high school post-COVID with the curriculum vertical alignment based on rigor and what the kids were learning. And we're increasing that rigor. So performance tests are done in 10th grade, now we're going down to 7th grade. So we're going to continue that, and we're bringing in the 6th grade team this year during election day so that we can do a vertical alignment 6, 7, 8. So we keep working. Next is special population.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Lonsdale. I'm the new administrative intern for the People Services Department. I'm going to introduce our high needs subgroups to you. So under our high needs population, we have free and reduced lunch, students with disabilities, and English language learners. Under free and reduced lunch, we have approximately 3,400 students. Under students with disabilities, we have approximately 1,300 students. And under English language learners, we have approximately 1,400 students. It's important to note that not all students fall under one category. So some of them fall under 2 of the subgroups and some fall under all 3 subgroups.
Just not to interrupt you, but just to give you an idea, we have approximately 5,900 students in the district right now. So those numbers are, fairly high percentage of our student population.
I think last year we had over 300 students, new students in the district. So that makes, quite a difference, especially when they're our English language learners.
And next, we're going to take a look at some of the state testing and how our high needs population did. Hi, everyone.
I'm Melanie Dinger for the People Services Department. So like Michelle said, we're gonna be looking at ELA, math, and science over the next 3 slides. Historically, our high needs group has done very well. We outperformed the state in most grades in all 3 areas. You'll see on the next slide a little dip in math, which is to be expected, to go back to what Robin was saying. Again, these concepts are new, so that abstract thinking. But overall, we are right in line with the state. We outperform in most of the areas. And here in math, you can see that grade 5 dip, but again, abstract thinking, you have a high need population, you're going to see that dip. But you see grade 6, 7, 8, right there in line with the state. And in science, you'll see that grade 5 again, and it's important to note that that little dip right there with the state, we are very close to their number. I think it's a 0.5% difference in that grade 5. And then obviously we trend upwards with grade 8 and grade 11.
Are the 5th graders the kindergarten COVID class?
Yeah,
Yep.
they were first grade.
They were, the kids that are 5th grade now went out in
Time.
March of 2020.
And they were in kindergarten then?
Yes.
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 Okay, that doesn't surprise
They
me.
were my.
That makes a big, I think that makes a big
I'm
point.
gonna interrupt again, so sorry, because what Robin was saying with that abstract thinking, we are looking at play-based learning in kindergarten and doing it in center, so having that focus on math and having that abstract thinking for them, that is play-based.
I'm Karen LaFoe. I'm the Assistant Director of Pupil Services. I'm going to give you some of our special education demographics. So currently on special ed caseload, we have 1,317 students, which is 21% of our total population. We have 192 students who are considered dually identified. So those are students that receive EL services in addition to special education services. We have 128 students that are currently attending specialized outplace programs due to their very high needs. And last year, we had 65 students take alternate assessment, which are alternate state assessments for the Smarter Balance, for NGSS, for SAT, and last. Thank you. And those assessments, so students that qualify for those assessments, they're about 2% of our population, but they have to go through very strict criteria in order to qualify. So those students would have to have testing that showed IQ levels below 70, which would be considered what we call the deficient range, as well as adaptive scores that would be below 60, again, in the deficient range. Those 2 scores are required to meet that criteria, as well as obviously having an IEP. In special education, we have 13 total classifications for students with disabilities. Up on the board, you'll see our most represented disabilities, specific learning disability topping the chart at 30%, speech and language impairment at 16, autism at 15%, developmental disability at 12, and OHI, which is other health impairment, ADHD at 8%.
All right, so I'm Stefani Larry, I'm the Director of Pupil Services, who you saw the majority of our team present this evening. Who you did not see is Gina Como. She is our new Assistant Director of Pupil Services. She is currently tonight at parent-teacher conferences with her old classroom, since she had them for the majority of the marking period. We wanted to make sure that if our families had any questions, that she would be there to answer, but you'll be seeing her in future presentations. What I wanted to go back and highlight again is just to really reiterate that high needs subgroup. So there are 3 groups within that larger group that are pretty significantly different. So we have the free and reduced lunch cohort, whose families are facing economic hardship. We have the EL-ML cohort, and those students are receiving intensive language interventions. And then we have our students with disabilities, and they qualified for an IEP because they're significantly below grade level. And they require specialized instruction. So we do have students, thankfully, that exit our services. Our teachers work really hard to help them bridge the gap. They've developed some compensatory strategies, and they exit from special education. What I want you to remember tonight is those students typically aren't represented in our group, because now they no longer have an IEP and they're represented in the Reg Ed population. So I always want you to be mindful of that. And by no means it's to make excuses, but I want you to always remember that we do have students that exit from services. They're just not represented in our bucket of scores. Just last year alone, we had 105 students exit from special education. We're extremely proud of those 105 students. When you're looking at those students individually, most, I would say almost all, they either met their target, their growth target, or they reached proficiency. And again, those students aren't captured in our data. And I wouldn't have it a different way because I do want them to, and we all want them to exit from services and be part of that general education subgroup. But I just wanted to highlight that. With our pupil services targeted interventions for our students with disabilities, we have to look at the whole child, right? So before we can get to the academic piece, we have to ensure that all of their other needs are met. That includes their social emotional well-being, that includes their attendance, right? Because if they're not in school, how can they be present for instruction and learn? And just their overall homeschool connectedness. So our first intervention that we're focusing on this year is our LEAP program. We were very fortunate to receive funding this summer through a grant to institute LEAP within West Haven. All of our social workers, our school psychologists, our school counselors, and our outreach workers received targeted training this summer on the LEAP model, which is building relationships with families in an effort to improve attendance. And the main piece of LEAP is home visits. So meeting parents where they're at, where they're comfortable with, and it may be a series of home visits. It's not a one and done type thing to really figure out where did that breakdown happen? What's preventing parents from sending their children to school? We've had great success, even though it's only October 21st. We were able to help families with a variety of things. One example in particular, we had a student who's an elementary age, whose family had different custody days, and the child was having a significantly difficult time coming to school. We were able to find a neighborhood daycare for that child to attend so that he can come to school consistently, which ultimately improves his overall attendance, but then again, so that he's able to access the services as well. So we're looking at the whole picture when we're looking at our students. Dana spoke a lot about our benchmark program, which I won't go into too much depth, but we have a intervention kit that we're utilizing with our students who have IEPs. So in addition to that tier 1 instruction that all students are receiving, our students are receiving that intensive supplemental instruction as well in hopes of bridging that reading gap. And then lastly, LRE, we are hoping to maintain our students in that least restrictive environment. And many of you have been on the board for a few years now, and you know that I feel very strongly about students attending their home schools. And in order to do so, we have to utilize a variety of resources to ensure that all of their needs are met, including their social emotional well-being as well. And that includes the use of our support staff and our partnerships with other community agencies. So that we hope in implementing all 3 of these interventions, we will see those academic gains. Thank you.
I didn't introduce myself before, but I'm Rafael Frank. I'm in charge of science and EL. Going into the ELML demographic overall population, this was taken on October 10th or 11th. As of Friday, we're actually at 1,400 in the district. We have actually registered 166 new English learners, multilingual learners since the beginning of the school year. If you're looking, your percentage is 23% of the K-12 population. And our 3 Title I schools, we have 41% EL. Salmon Rock is at 44%, and Washington is right behind them at 39%. I do have each data for each of the schools here if you want to take a look afterwards. What we're looking at our population, of students, we're looking at two things. Our EL students are making growth. So if we're looking at their growth level, they're growing at a percentage that is equal or higher than our regular students. For instance, in math, last year they grew at 40%, where math for regular ed student was 39%, and their average target achieved was 57, while regular ed students was 56. What we are seeing, even though academically our students are growing, a large number of our students are considered SLIFE. They're students with limited interrupted formal education. So what we're lacking right now is that proficiency level. They're not proficient in 7th grade, probably because they missed 3rd and 4th. So we're catching them up and getting them to their grade level expectation.
Rafael, just to be clear, this is a student who may come in from, give me an example of a
We have
country, and
most of our refugees from Afghanistan have not been in school in years or not been in school at all. We have kids from Guatemala that have had limited interrupted formal education. So all these students are working hard, they're learning, they're growing at the same rate as our regular ed students, but they're lacking those academic skills in those areas. They have a gap that we are working hard to close, and we have wonderful team and support here that is working to close that gap, and it's working, but it's going to take some time. So when we're looking at our proficiency rate and we're looking at 23% of our population being EL, that proficiency rate is not going to be as high as we would like it to be because those kids are still growing. When we look at our growth rate looks good because our SPED and EL population are making that growth. Make sense?
we have a really high percentage, especially in the younger grades. This year, kindergarten is very high.
Yeah.
Those kids, believe it or not, will make progress much more quickly. It's the older kids, grades, what, 5, 6, 7,
7,
8, that are coming in that they absolutely take time to pick up the language and start to
And-
develop skills.
and close that gap. Especially math. You're coming in 9th grade, you've never been in school, now you have to do algebra in 7th grade. We have put in place the shelter instruction, what Mara is gonna talk to you about, just to try to close some of those gaps, but it's a long road and we're getting there, but it's gonna take some time.
Rob, did we partner with Adult Ed at all to get the parents EL?
We
Education as
do
well?
refer, yes, a lot of them, but the flip side to that is that he has a lot of parents registering for adult ed and not enough staff to teach the classes. So that's been happening a lot because I know Scott always sends me an email, can you send it out to your staff? And I do, because it's hard to find the people and they're long hours, it's a long day.
That
So-
lack of reinforcement at home has got to be a killer for those kids. You know, like they're learning everything they have to learn from us.
Yes, on their own. And it's not that the parents do not want to help.
Exactly, but they,
They're, yes.
if they're getting education in English
First thing
and
at the
that's not
team
their,
at adult ed,
yeah,
for
Yes.
examples, they want to learn.
yeah, absolutely. It's just, it's got to be just such a
And
huge obstacle.
It's an excellent.
And yes, we have tutors, we went down from 43 to 38 languages, but we still have 38 different languages in the district. So Mark's gonna talk to you a little bit about what we're doing with the students. Oh, the other way. Oh, the last one, go ahead. Oh, you wanna do that one? Sure. The assessment, this is the last ling assessment the students take, just to show you, they're scoring well, reading and writing. They went up in growth rate from 29 to 36 and 61 to 67. But this is a last ling assessment that assesses their oral language skills. To exit the program, they have to pass the assessment. And for oral, we went down a little bit from 34 to 33 and from 63 to 59 for average percentage of calculated target achieved.
That was a new assessment this year, though.
Yes, and it was new.
It was a new
assessment.
assessment this year, so.
I'm Mara Rabinowitz. I'm going to start with our Benchmark Express program that we have for students in kindergarten through 6th grade. It is a companion program for the Benchmark Advanced program. So it aligns directly to what the mainstream students are doing. What we are doing with our EL students is we are working with the classroom teachers to figure out if the Express program works best for them, or if we think that the Benchmark Advanced program would work best. And then during that SRBI time that Dana was talking about, we decide which students need to work on Express and which ones need to work on advanced. And then we instruct them and we assess them based on those needs, based on the lesson scores that you saw. In addition to the Express program in K-5, we also have the newcomer curriculum. That's for students that are brand new to our country. So the newcomer curriculum has 10 themed units. And in the themed units, students are learning new vocabulary. It could be about community, it could be about school, it can be about different jobs in the community, transportation, but we're just trying to get them to learn that basic academic, basic, vocabulary. So then once they finish with that program, they can move to the Benchmark Express program.
So they're able to navigate the school system. They're able to navigate the community. So they're learning the basic language. So they can say, I need to go to a cafeteria and get food. Or they can describe if they have a stomachache, all about their body. So that's what the curriculum designed.
And when we get to Kerrigan for grades 5 through 12, we offer the shelter program that was referred to previously. It's also for students that are new to our country. In this program, we have our academic teachers paired with either a bilingual tutor or one of our EL teachers in all of the academic classes. And the academic teachers are trained specifically in the SIOP model. We provide them with resources that are specifically research-based for EL learners. And in these classes, every lesson focuses on reading, writing, listening, and speaking in English, the target language. All lessons have an academic objective as well as a language objective. And the students are really doing great in the program. They love to be there. They feel comfortable around their peers. And we always try to select teachers that really love to work with that group of students. So our goal in that program is to get them to grow. So they come in and they don't know any English. And like we talked about before, academics could be really hard for them since it's possible that they didn't go to school in their country. So what we're trying to do is just get them introduced to the English language and get them to grow both with English and with the academics. And once they're ready, it's a really fluid program so that even if they came in this year and we're like, oh my God, they're a rock star, we can move them right into the mainstream classroom where we continue to monitor their progress. So I think that, Benchmark Express is, Benchmark is new this year in West Haven, but I know that the shelter program and the newcomer program, they're, working great because we can see that Raphael showed you the data, the average percentage of target achieved is definitely growing. We know our kids are growing and hopefully they continue to grow with the Benchmark program. Yeah, if you guys have any questions for the team.
One of the things I wanted to point out about Benchmark and special populations is that the way the program is designed, the STA instruction, the steps to advance in the express instruction is actually front-loaded with the students. So rather than them getting the tier 1 instruction, struggling, and then getting help or support, the information is front-loaded, which is really great for some of our students who kind of have been lower achievers in the past, because when they get to that tier 1 instruction, they're actually a day ahead of their peers. So they know some of that vocabulary already. So when the teacher puts a word up and says, can anyone tell me what they think this might mean? They may know what that means already. They may know that letter sound. So they're feeling for once ahead of their peers rather than behind, which I think is going to be great in building their confidence and capacity.
That's a really, really good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Questions?
I think you guys did an excellent job. It was very informative and you all spoke very well. I was very impressed.
Just the coordinators, it's also our administrators and our teachers in the building that are really work, so. Thank you to them too.
If I can, I want to, first of all, thank again everybody who came tonight and compliment them, not only because one of the things, and I'm a pain in the neck on this, every time I've talked to coordinators, I talk to you, the scores are what they are. Don't try to sugarcoat. We do pretty well where we are. What's more importantly, and you can see these guys work really hard, are identifying the problems and putting a plan in place to try to address those problems and develop skills. And again, I think they do an outstanding job of that. So again, it's, we can't go back and retake the test. We use the results and we make a plan going forward. And again, I think they did a great job.
They did an excellent job. It's not easy to come and speak to your boss's boss and be calm and collected, and you guys did a fabulous job.
I really liked the part about AI and how not only is it already being implemented, but there's PD planned for further use of it. And I think it was Dana that mentioned using it to our advantage rather than our disadvantage. I think that's kind of a sign of the times, and we have to embrace it rather than fight against it. So I'm really excited to see how that.
We're gonna continue using that in the spring for our March workshop. So it's gonna be using it for some grade level. But yeah,
Okay.
we're moving along with the times.
Yeah.
Sorry to speak.
No, you're.
Our paras were trained on it as well. So our last PD day, all of our paraprofessionals in grades 7 through received the first training. In hopes that they could utilize that tool when they're working in small groups.
Nice. Love it.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, absolutely. Anybody else?
I just want to say I'm impressed at how well we're doing compared to the DERGs.
Yeah, we like
The
the
degree numbers in our DERG.
Yeah.
And it's impressive, really, when you're looking at it that way.
I think, I want to go back to, and again, I know I talk a lot, but we really do good work here. And I go back to our last year's budget process when we presented to both the MARB and the city council, and we shared with them some of these numbers. And again, you guys know hopefully more than they know, so it's not as big a surprise. But when they look at the numbers and they look at our population, they're really eye-opening to them. And I think that they got it, and they understand, what we're actually up against when, our teachers go in the classroom today and 40% of them aren't speaking English, or 20% of them are special ed population, and we are making good progress. But I think, and Kev, I think you were at some of the meetings last year. I mean, some of the questions were like, they really couldn't believe it.
Yep, agreed.
I would even say you're making great progress, honestly, beyond good. It's impressive.
Thank you.
Great. Board reports. Anything from you, Morgan? Good, Patrick?
Just a couple things. Had the opportunity to attend the West Haven High School College Fair. I believe 58 out of 60 organizations did show up, and it was full house. Certainly for our students to take an opportunity. It's in their backyard. They don't have to travel. They can make plenty of contacts. Hopefully we'll promote that going forward.
I'm gonna jump in because last year I thanked everybody for that except Rose McDonald. So I want to make sure that I mention Rose McDonald this year because I know she does a lot of work with that.
If anyone is interested in the CAVE new board member workshop, it's December 3rd from 8:30 to 5 p.m. in Rocky Hill. And then I'll give this to the chair. We're entitled to one delegate for the delegate assembly. If anybody was around Thursday, November 14th, and wanted to attend the delegate assembly from 4 to 6, it's at the Mystic Marriott in Groton.
What's the date for the Rocky Hill?
The
I
No-
think it was the
November
5th. I think it was the
14th.
5th
Oh.
of Rocky Hill. I have to read my
This was Rocky
cheat sheet
Hills.
there.
December 3rd.
It's the Cape Conference, Bob?
Yeah, the Cape Conference is
It
8
precedes
to
the
5.
Cape Conference. It's the Thursday.
If anyone goes to that or the Cape Conference, my point is that, submit us your receipts and we can reimburse you for that. There is a line item for board members to attend those kinds of conferences.
That's it. Kim?
I'm good.
The only thing I want to say is appreciative I am, is focused on you, Neil, and the Elks are doing a community resource fair, and I know the school is being represented at Sunday. And
Excellent.
wear costumes.
I'm wearing mine now. Which? Jonathan? Good. All right. All right, next is approval of minutes, D1. The minutes from the regular board meeting on October 7th. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by Bob, second. Second. Second by Heather. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You were here. Two, everyone in favor except two abstentions. Patrick and I were not here.
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. I will entertain a motion, B 24
Motion.
Motion by Bob, second.
Second.
Second by Kim. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then D 24 I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion. Motion by Heather, second by Patrick. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And last on the agenda is D 24 donation by Paul Garino to the West Ham High School basketball team. There was a little graphic in your packet. This will be in addition to the 2 uniforms that they currently have. This will be a 3rd uniform that he is willing to provide at no charge for the basketball team. If we are willing to accept that donation, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by Bob, second by Kim. Any discussion about the uniforms?
Just the discussion. This does not set any precedent. If someone else wanted to make a donation, they.
One
would
of the
come to
reasons why I
board
talked to
again.
Kevin about this, one of the reasons we took it to the board was because if another one comes up, we'll take them on a
We'll run them every
one-by-one
time.
individual basis.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yep.
And obviously,
Definitely.
but thank you, Tim, for doing it after the fact.
Oh,
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
nice gesture.
Yeah.
And I've known Paul since he registered for kindergarten at Thompson many years ago.
Yes,
He's
and it's
a really
quite
good
a,
guy, and he's done very well with his business.
it's tops, shorts, and then long sleeve tops, it
Yeah,
looks
it's
like as
warm-up
well.
shirt.
Yeah,
It really is nice.
quite a few things. It's very generous. So we are happy to accept if the motion carries. Oh,
What's wrong with people donating?
there's nothing wrong with it, but we have to make sure that we accept. when we
You
accept
have to
donation,
accept the donation. There's
legally-
absolutely nothing wrong with
Yeah,
it.
we legally acquire.
And he
the
is putting the
maintenance and
logo of his business on there.
Wow.
It falls within, it does conform, we checked with the CIAC, it does conform with what they can put on there. So that's why we want to bring it before you, make sure you guys understand what you're getting. And again, we'll do it. If someone comes forward again, we'll bring it to you guys and you'll have the choice.
And
This
the-
one, I really endorse this. This is nice.
I think the bigger picture of the donations are, is someone might donate a playground. And then if we accept the donation of the playground, now it's legally our responsibility to maintain, upkeep, ensure the playground. So it's not just the basketball uniforms, but it's just in general, any donations come before the board to make sure that we're willing to accept the liability and responsibility for the donation. Exactly. All right, any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. The rest of the agenda is informational, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn at
Motion.
6:53 by Heather. And all in favor? Perfect.
Question out tonight.
Depending what it says, you know,
Yeah.
figure it out.